Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing? Good to see you all here this morning. Welcome to those of you joining us online. But today, we've got Steve Andrews in the house. We're excited about that. He's going to be teaching about an underdog or an unlikely hero we find in Scripture, a young woman by the name of Esther. And she was in a very dire situation. We're going to talk about that later. But God came through for her. And that's what he does. He comes through for us. So we're going to celebrate that with this opening song. And if you're able to, would you stand with us? We're going to celebrate this together. Here we go. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory, oh. When all I see is a mountain, God, you see a mountain move. So as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. Hey. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you, and every fear I lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. The battle belongs to you. Hey. And if you are for me, who can be against me? Oh, for Jesus, there's nothing that's impossible for you. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God, yeah. And almighty fortress, whatever we're going through, you go before us. There's nothing that can stand. Nothing can stand against the power of God. In the shadows. You shine in the shadows. Lord, you win. You win every battle. Nothing can stand. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows. You win every battle. Just so encouraging to think about that truth. Well, as you're seated, check out this video about what's coming up next week.
Here in this vineyard, there isn't much evidence of life right now. Row after row, the vines, they're bare. But soon, over the next few months, things will begin to change. A new life will become visible. These empty trellises will soon be filled with lush grape clusters. In some of the final words that Jesus shared with his disciples on the night before the cross, he invited them to abide, to remain in the vine. And it's an invitation that is also extended to us, which leads to fruitful living. We invite you to join us for a new series called Vine and Grapes, where we will discover the vine, what it means to abide, and the bountiful fruit we can experience in our lives when we do.
Well, a very warm welcome again to you. Good morning. How's 11 a.m. service going? How you guys doing? Yeah. Hey, you're awake?
Yes,
They're awake?
We're more awake.
If we haven't met, my name is Nate. I'm part of the team here, and this is my friend.
Elsa.
Yeah, so good. It's so good to have you. Those of you joining us online, it's always great to know that you're there. We got some really great stuff coming up this week. This month of May, we're in a month called AAPI, which stands for Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we, as a church, feel like God has called us to be intercultural. Felt like God has called us to have conversations around getting to know who's in our community. And that's part of what we love to do. So we have something coming up that's going to help us do that.
Yes, we want to invite everyone to come out on Tuesday. Here at the chapel, we're going to have a movie night. And it's going to be on the documentary called The Problem with Apu. It's based on a character who's an Indian immigrant that's on a famous, I'm sure if you've heard, a famous animated series called The Simpsons. And so basically, this documentary talks about the racism. He was like the first character that represented Indian heritage. So it's gonna go over some racial microaggression and just a time to just have good discussion. So we want to invite everyone to come out. There's going to be a panel, and it just kind of discussing how that affected a lot of Indians, Asian Americans, in regards to that character. Okay.
Yeah, I love moments like that. You know, whenever I get into conversations like that, I walk away with just understanding something new. I become a better person. I learn, and then again, this is the call of Jesus. To love one another and to love one another well and to understand each other's stories and history. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I did want to add, just to say, that it is a safe space. So we want people to come. You know, it may get uncomfortable, and that's okay. I think it's opportunity for us to have a discussion together. This is a part of being the church. So don't shy away if you're afraid, you know, you might offend someone. Honestly, even the panel, I know the people on the panel, and they just want to welcome everyone to feel comfortable. Yeah.
Love that. Come with your questions. And in 2 Saturdays from now, come with your running shoes because we are going to have the Hope Water Fun Run and 5K. Are you going?
Well, I'm going to be there, definitely, but I'm going to be running in my mind.
You're going to be running in us with spirit. I was there last year, and I ran the 5K, and my only goal was to finish all 5 kilometers without stopping, but I'm not going to tell you how long that it took me to do that. Now, I did hit my goal. I was able to do the whole thing without stopping, but I'm not going to tell you how long it took. This year, my kids are coming with me, and so I have a good excuse to do the fun run, the 1 mile fun run. So, again, a whole family thing. The proceeds go to help us drill freshwater wells for our friends, the Pokot tribe in Kenya. Amazing what's happening there in that part of the world, and we get to be a part of that by simply running a 5K or sponsoring someone that does. So if you want to be a part of that, please sign up today. I think you can sign up in the lobby or online. And then there's something coming up next week that I know you're going to be a part of.
Yes.
And that is?
It's the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner. So it's a great time to get together with other volunteers who've served in this community to celebrate. There's worship, there's games, and great food. It's at 6:30, so we welcome all the volunteers.
6:30. So if you volunteer here at Troy, we would love to celebrate you. It's a great night. We get to know each other better. We get to celebrate you, get to have a free meal, and it's going to be great. So before we move on with our service, why don't everybody stand up and greet someone behind you or beside you. Give them a high five or a handshake. Welcome them today. Thank you, Elsa. Well, as I mentioned, as we started the service off, we are talking today about a young woman that we find in Scripture named Esther. It's a powerful story about how God intervened in her life and on behalf of an entire nation. And one of the probably the famous phrases from Esther, the powerful part of this story, is that she has this mentor named Mordecai. We're going to hear about that from Steve in just a minute. But she has this mentor in her life named Mordecai, an older guy, is a family member of hers. And she is struggling about what she has to do. Again, we're going to hear the details of this, but she comes a moment in her life where she's struggling of what she has to do because it could put her own life in great peril. And she feels kind of the call of God to step in and stand in the gap for her nation. But she's struggling with that because she's afraid. And her mentor, Mordecai, says to her one of these phrases that I think just has stuck with me over the years. He says to her, Esther, listen, who knows that God hasn't put you in the position that he's put you in for such a time as right now? In other words, maybe Esther, you're the answer. Your story of redemption, the way that God has led your life, the places that he has put you, the way he has designed you. Who knows if you aren't the answer? And who knows if in the time that we live, friends, as we connect with God, as we connect with one another, who knows if we aren't part of the answer to some of the darkness and the confusion in our culture. And that's for all of us. You might be in this place and you don't know much about Jesus, or you come to church, maybe this is your first time here. I want you to know that God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And you could be an answer to a problem or a darkness in our nation. And so we're going to sing the song as we prepare to hear this message from Steve. We're going to sing the song that just basically says, are you ready? Are you ready to step in to what God has for you, what God has called you? And maybe you're not, maybe you don't feel like you're ready, but here's the invitation. Even if you don't feel like you're ready, go ahead and just come. So if you're ready or not, just come. Come now, as you are or as you want to be. Are you ready? Are you ready? Come now. Tired, broken, scared, and just in need. Ready or not, it's alright. Take your time, if nothing else, just come. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Come now, bring your hopes, your dreams, your doubts, your scars. Are you ready? Are you ready? Come now, bring your hurt, your fears, your faith, your heart. Are you ready? Are you ready or not? There's no place like his presence. There's no time like the now. Everyone, 2 or 3 of us, kind of meet here and now. Yeah, he welcomes the broken. He's alright with your past. He's not mad at any one of us, but he waits with open arms, says come.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Come now. Leave your inhibitions at the door. Are you ready? Are you ready? Come now. Just lay your burdens down. He's got them all. Are you ready? Are you ready or not? He's still faithful to deliver. Mighty is ever to save. He's still good on his promises, and his love still never fails. He's not moved love, like he's wild about the heart. So come now, for all we've seen, we ain't seen nothing yet. Are you ready? Are you ready? Come now, let's bring him praise for what he might do next. Are you ready? Are you ready or not? He's already bought our freedom. He's already paid our debts. He's already done the miracle. He's already conquered death. He's our light and salvation. He's our rock solid hope. He's already done enough for us. He's already doing more. He's already seen the ending. He's already seen us through. He's already breaking out in us. He's already on the move. He's already won our battles. He's already paved the way. He's already gone ahead of us. And he is ready when we are. Now, for all we've seen, we ain't seen nothing yet. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Come now, bring him praise for what he's gonna do next. Are you ready? Are you ready or not? Just come.
Hey, Kensington, Sam Anderson, back on the streets of Detroit. We're here connecting with people, asking them about their favorite underdog story and if they've ever viewed themselves as an underdog of sorts. So let's connect with some people. Who is your favorite underdog?
Rocky.
Rocky Balboa?
Yeah. Rocky Balboa.
A Rocky Balboa. Okay, all right.
The Detroit Lions.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Do you think it's going to be the case next year too?
I mean, hopefully not.
Hopefully not. But that's us
We're
every
gonna do-
that's
we're-
us every
yes,
off
every year.
season.
Growing up in Detroit, I'd have to say the Lions.
The 2004 Pistons team.
Probably the Philadelphia Eagles against the New England Patriots.
U of M versus OSU. I
Okay.
mean, in the last 10 years, we've been getting smoked by them.
Would it be conceited to say myself?
No, that's totally
Okay, yeah,
cool.
myself.
You're your favorite underdog.
Yes.
Maybe Jesus,
He's going
yeah.
up against the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes and all those folks.
Maybe so.
Why is it that you think that we root for underdogs?
Because I think sometimes, most of the times, everyone feels like we're the underdog, right?
Most of the time, the underdog doesn't have enough means
Yeah.
to compete with the top one, and also people identify themselves with the underdog.
Yeah, they see themselves as part of the story.
Yeah, they see themselves like as if they can do it, I can probably also do it.
I think it's a good story.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, you know, everyone, the odds and the favorites. So you got Lions hat on.
I do.
Who's always been the underdog?
The Lions.
Who is not?
It's heartbreak.
Who is not right now the underdogs for the NFC? The Lions, right?
I know, yeah.
So like that's why
My heart is so full of joy it might
Yes.
burst out of my chest,
Yes.
actually.
And so I love that story.
It's always inspiring to see somebody who is like you make it through like the ranks of whatever it is.
Everyone, they can't really identify with somebody who's favored. A lot
Yeah.
of people come, disadvantaged situations.
Because they don't feel like they're
They don't
favored.
feel like they're favored in life,
Yeah.
so that's what they kind of identify with.
In life, a lot of people feel like they can't catch a break, or that things just always go wrong for them. So seeing that when someone isn't projected to win and they pull it out,
Yeah.
it gives them a little faith that they're going to be able to do the same.
Have you ever identified yourself as an underdog?
No.
Never.
No, never.
No.
I'm a favorite.
Okay.
No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
I was like, dang, that's okay.
Yeah.
I like that energy.
What you gotta be confident.
It could be basketball,
Yeah.
it could be chess.
Yeah.
You know, somebody
Yeah,
got
yeah,
more
yeah.
experience than me. I feel like I'm the underdog.
Okay.
But, you know, if I just make this one right move, I'll be all right.
Basketball game in high school, we
Yeah.
were facing third grade. We were-
I didn't peg you as a baller, Javier.
I come from Africa, and we didn't have like enough resources. Sometimes like go months without electricity.
Yeah.
But like I found a way to always make things work.
Yeah.
To make it work, and if I'm at the point I am today, it's due to like not giving up
Yeah.
and always believing that I can do it.
I left my previous employer of 19 years to come to a new company.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, you know, I'm looking at myself as the underdog.
I came from a very like poor background, like one of those things where they didn't think I was even going to graduate like high school.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of the fact that I not only did that, I went to college, you know, got a good job,
Okay,
make more
get it,
than,
girl.
yeah, right?
Okay, yeah, that's what's up.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you're ready. You're ready to go.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Love it. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank
Perfect.
you.
Perfect. Thank you. You too.
Oh man, I love people. I just love people. That is so fun to watch those responses. And so on the count of 3, shout out your favorite underdog. Shout it out loud, okay? Ready? 3. Oh, Taylor Swift. What? She's an underdog? That's hilarious. You know what? She's probably felt like that at some time. That is so funny. Okay, got to get myself together. How many of you remember the 1980s U.S. Olympic men's hockey team? Do you remember where you were when they beat you're showing your age, man. But it was amazing. It was one of those unbelievable moments. And I thought, but here's the things we were preparing for this week. We knew that every person who comes in the door at some point or another feels like an underdog. That's just, you've all experienced that at one point or another in your life. My 8-year-old grandson, CK, after his first play, he's 8 years old, playing his first baseball, his dad's coaching. He comes to me after the first practice. He goes, Gimpy, I'm the worst player on the team. And I'm thinking, yeah, probably. Fast forward 4 weeks later, they're playing the undefeated team in their league. And in the last inning, he gets a hit and scores the winning run. So, why do you love that? You love it because someone who just like, you never thought it would happen for him. But here's the cool thing, is part of the community of Jesus Christ is that we're always rooting for people. We're always stepping into life with people. Like some of you that are like me, you might see our Asian American Pacific Islander month we're celebrating in America. You think, no big deal. Andrew Kim took me to California last summer, and we spent time in the Japanese American community in Los Angeles and the Korean American community, learned stuff about that I had no idea. Met an activist in downtown San Francisco who spent the last 25 years finally getting the San Francisco municipality to collect the garbage in his community. Are you kidding me? This is America. And you just, all of a sudden you realize these stories and you realize there are underdogs out there that are fighting for things that really matter and are beautiful. And it's just very inspiring and very encouraging to me. So, and it's even better when someone like that stands up against a wave of opposition. And so one of the things that I've loved as I've gotten older is I love following these heroes, these people who are defeating the odds. In fact, this is going to be so superficial, I apologize ahead of time, but I'm a big golf fan. Anybody following the golf tournament this weekend at PGA? Okay, quite a few of you. Is Michael Block not an unbelievable story? Yes. He's a club pro, and he's never done anything. He's 46 years old. He's tied for 8th, the PGA, playing with the greatest players in the world. And Friday afternoon, they interviewed him about, hey, so man, how'd you feel after your second round? The guy just breaks down and cries because he's just never expected to be there. And it's so encouraging. So that's part of why we love that. So today, I want to say to you, whatever your battle is, there's a message here for you today to seize the opportunity that God is giving you, whatever that opposition is. I thought there'd be some teenagers across all of our Kensington campuses today who feel like they're the only person in their high school is trying to say yes to God. I remember that feeling at Memphis Central High School. Feel like I was the only person in the world at certain points who was trying to say yes to God and say no to other stuff that was damaging and hurtful. And I thought, there's some high school kids here today that are trying to say yes to God. I'm like, seize the opportunity. I thought some of you are sober for the first time in years and battling your addiction. You fought. You're fighting an underdog battle, like way to go. I thought some of you are fighting for your families that are crumbling. It could be, there's so many things that it could be. And I think that is why today's message is so meaningful. To say, not so much the outcome, but the attempt to do what is truly God has called you to do, to make the attempt regardless of the outcome, okay? So in light of that, let's receive our offering. We passed the pouches again, which is fun, in case you have a check or cash. I saw cash a couple of months ago. I know that people still have it. I don't have any, but you might have some. But this is the way that I have loved for years signing up online, so my monthly tithe check comes just automatically out of my paycheck each 2 weeks, and it's such a great way of practicing stewardship. So I just encourage you and thank you. And I want to say this about Hope Water, the Hope Water run in 2 weeks. I will not be running, but I will give you a high five at the end for your effort. And I'll be exhausted because it is tiring. It's really tiring to stand at the end and high five people. But I want to tell you something. Your faithful giving through Hope Water and through Kensington, well, that's one of the areas where we seized an opportunity to say, as a church, one of the many things we care about is the 1.2 million Pokot in Northwest Kenya and them having clean water. We dream of a church in every village, clean water for every village, a school in every village, medical resources in communities. This is something we dream about, which is so amazing. And so I just hope you know that that's part of what we're about. So today we're looking at the life of Esther and one of the greatest underdogs of all time. And by the way, Steve and I were just in Israel. I did not remember this. We were in Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in 1948, and where it's a fascinating story. I'm going to give you a little aside. I didn't give the first service. The Dead Sea Scrolls were uncovered, and every book of the Old Testament was represented in near perfect, like other than maybe a jot or a mark here, the Old Testament, Genesis to Malachi that we have, the Dead Sea Scrolls had it, except the book of Esther. And we're not sure why. Because she was in an occupied land, and maybe that the people of Qumran didn't like that. But here's the amazing thing. 600 years after Qumran, Muhammad told people around the world that the Bible cannot be trusted because it was corrupted. And that was what was told the world for 1,300 years. And then in 1948, the Qumran scrolls got discovered by a shepherd boy, and there is no dispute, 100% certainty that the Old Testament, Genesis to Malachi, right up to the time of Jesus, is 100% accurate. It was not meddled with. It was trustworthy all on the way. Some of you don't know that, but that was only discovered in 1948. After 1,300 years of people saying, yeah, you can't trust it. Yes, you can. So, in light of that, as we were looking at Esther, I don't know why I think it's probably because she was, in a sense, a slave to King Xerxes. You'll find that out in a unique way, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So here's how the story goes. She's born as an orphan. That's not correct. She's born, and then she's orphaned almost immediately. She lost her at a very young age, and her older cousin Mordecai adopts her. And her original name was Hadassah, but she came to be known as Esther. And so during this time, Esther is just she's like the rest of the Jews that have been carried from Israel into exile, where they're taken out of their country, and they're all basically trying to hide their true identity, because like Jews throughout history, you ask Jewish people, their vision of the challenges of life is not a question of if persecution is coming or difficulty, but only a matter of when. And this is how they were living during this time period. So Esther is basically hiding her Jewish identity as far as we know. And so as they come millions of Jewish people under the rule of Persia and King Xerxes, which, by the way, King Xerxes' kingdom stretched all across the known world, all the way into India. I mean, this guy was unbelievable, 120 provinces and countries that he was in charge of. And so he had great wealth and power. And he was also not a particularly good guy. He was ruthless, he had a great warrior, he was a womanizer, he was wealthy, powerful, he was all around not a particularly good guy. And so this story begins with him throwing basically a 6-month celebration of his victories. And he has leaders from all over the known world come, and for 6 months they kind of celebrate it, and it culminates in a week-long party where everybody's drinking absolutely as much alcohol as they can get, as much wine as they can get. It's a party to end all parties. And during this party, he calls for his wife, Queen Vashti, who's been hosting the women in a different part of the palace, to come and appear before him and show off her beauty to all the people. And she doesn't come. She's one of the first liberated women. She's like, forget you, I'm not coming. Which was basically, yeah, you got a fan here. I'm a fan of Queen Vashti. And she doesn't come. She's risking her life. And so the king, I'm just sharing this part because it makes me laugh. And I hope one of you will laugh because in the first service, nobody laughed. The king is so miffed that she won't come that the king makes an edict or a proclamation to go out all across the known world. And this is what the edict says. All the women, this is Esther 1, verse 20, all the women will respect their husbands. Okay, thank you. You're awake. This is hilarious. You know, I've always told people, said, if you have to tell people you're the leader, you're not the leader. If you got to tell somebody to respect you, you're not going to get respect. I don't care if you're King Xerxes. And all the women, and by the way, the rest of the story, I'll just give you the end. All the women respected their husbands from then on. Does anybody believe that? No, come on, of course not. So, from the least to the greatest, so the king and his nobles were pleased with this advice. And so in verse 22, he sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in their own language, proclaiming that every man should be ruler over his own household using his native tongue. Which is, by the way, fast forward to the New Testament where Paul is getting ready to talk to husbands and wives. You know what the first thing he says to them? He says to the believers in the body of Christ, he says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. In other words, the basis for all relationships is mutual submission. Now, it might look differently because the way people's giftedness and relationship, but it's interesting of coming where women are just, where the Queen Vashti is basically Xerxes' property. Women have no rights, have really no voice, and but I still bet that respect was not coming as like they thought it was. So anyway, after this happens, Vashti gets exiled. King doesn't want to see her anymore, and he starts a talent search. It's been a great modern reality television show. They do a beauty search all across the world, and they bring in hundreds of beautiful virgins, all probably between the ages of 14 and 17, to be paraded before the king and prepared over a period of months, and the lucky girl gets to be picked by the king. Now, can you imagine the nightmare, first of all, for these girls being pulled out of their homes, being pulled from all over the world, and just to be a part of the king's harem? Because you know the king's going to lose it. No matter who it is, the king's going to lose interest. And so, anyway, out of this vast talent search, Esther is chosen. And Esther steps into this without real preparation, but she has Mordecai, her cousin kind of / father, who is going to coach her through this process. Now, there's one other character that I need to bring in. So Xerxes is the king. Mordecai serves in the king's palace, but he's not really known. He's kind of like a secondary worker. And it's his cousin, Esther, who becomes the queen. And as far as we know, Xerxes never makes the connection until later between Esther and Mordecai, that they're related. And he doesn't know Esther's a Jew. Well, the number two person in command is a guy named Haman. And Haman loves to ride in on the chariots, and he loves them for fanfare. And King Xerxes says that everyone that sees Haman come in should bow down before him as he comes in. Well, Mordecai is a Jew. You have no other gods before me. You don't bow down as a Jew. You don't bow down in front of anybody except God. And so Mordecai will not bow down in front of Haman. Well, Haman gets very upset. And he's like, I not only want Mordecai to die, I want all the Jews in the world to die. How's that for being a little petty? So if you don't like my sermon, come up to me and tell me later. I'll just say, fine, I hope you die and all your family. No, I'm just saying that's how petty it is. That's how horrible it would be. And so Mordecai stands up to his values of not bowing down to Haman, but he finds himself in real trouble. So Haman goes to Xerxes and he says, I'm going to make a huge gift to the royal treasury. And what we're going to do is we're going to execute all the Jews in the world. It's going to be a Holocaust, just like World War II. We're going to literally try to kill every Jew in the world. So that's really where our story begins. Esther's now the queen, and Mordecai, one other thing, Mordecai actually foiled a plot of people that were going to assassinate the king. He foiled a plot, but got no credit for it. He's a good guy. And so Mordecai finds out that Haman has gotten this thing passed, that every single Hebrew in the empire is going to be murdered on on Adar, sometime in February, March. And this is where we pick up the chapter. Mordecai hears that all the Jews are going to be killed. Okay, you with me? It's kind of confusing. There's a lot going on, but Mordecai is trying to figure out some way to save his people. And it says, when he learned of all that had been done, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the city, wailing loudly and bitterly. And let me just say this, isn't it what you would do? If you knew that your people were going to be destroyed and killed, can you imagine the grieving that's going on in Ukraine and Russia right now? The grieving of families, of hundreds and hundreds of thousands that have been killed and probably permanently wounded or maimed. And they're fighting for nothing except a play for power. And so this has been going on. And so Mordecai knows, and he grieves the loss that he knows is coming. So he went only as far as the king's gate because no one clothed in sackcloth was allowed to enter it. Now, why was that? Because when you're a ruler and you got the power of the whole world, then the people around you, they don't let anything come to you except what's going to feel good. Right? You're only going to get praise. You're only going to get people that are going to say, hey, you're the best. You're awesome. That's why one of the most beautiful things in life, even as hard as it is for us to have each other and be able to tell each other the truth. To tell each other, you need people in your life to tell you you're full of it in a loving way. This is just part of it. And so, but the king is not allowed, because no one is allowed to bring any pain into the palace. So in every province to which the edict and order of the king came, all 120 provinces, there was a great mourning among the Jews with fasting, weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther, in verse 4, she finds out about that. She sends her eunuchs and her female attendants. She sends Hathach to go and talk to Mordecai. And in verse 6, Hathach goes out to Mordecai in the open square, because Esther certainly can't go out there in public. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, including the exact amount of the money that Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the text of the edict for their annihilation. You go and read this in the book of Esther. It's part of your assignment. It had been published in Susa to show to Esther and explain it to her, and he told him to instruct her to go into the king's presence to beg for mercy and plead with him for her people. This is where it gets dicey. So Hathach goes back and reports to Esther what Mordecai had said, and then she instructed him to say this to Mordecai. This is where it gets really interesting. All the king's officials and the people of the royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned by the king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. So here's the challenge. Esther knows she can go, But if she goes and she doesn't get the gold scepter from the king, then she's going to be executed. It's not a great feeling. And you say, well, she's the queen. Certainly the king is going to send the gold scepter. Well, look at what she says. She says, but 30 days have passed since I was called to go to the king. So this is the queen who can only go to the king when she's called. And it's been 30 days. What do you think's happened in those 30 days? The king has certainly gone on to other women and other opportunities. He's got an unlimited number of opportunities. Esther is starting to seriously think she may never be called again. And she may not be welcome when she comes. So, when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. By the way, this has been repeated in so many stories when people are trying to find courage to seize the opportunities placed in front of them. Because here's what I'm going to come back to in a minute. Every one of us in this room, you, all of us have opportunities in front of us that no one else has. And it's a question, are you going to have the courage to step into that opportunity? I don't know what that is. Years ago, when I met Julius Mergor, when we were reconnected in 2002, I had a choice. Do I give my life for every Pocot person to have clean water and to have a church in every village? It was just one of those things. Like, the answer was, I knew that was the opportunity that God had placed in front of my life. And had given me the opportunity and the position to actually do something about that. That was one of many things that we've been able to do through the years that God allowed us to do. Now, here's what's incredible. Listen to it again. Esther gets these words from Mordecai, verse 13. Do not think that because you're in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. Mordecai had faith that God was going to somehow preserve a remnant of the Jewish people. You remain silent, the Jews, relief and deliverance will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And then here's the great question that I want to ask you today. I want you to go home and talk about this. I want you to talk about this with friends. I'd love for you to write this sentence and put it on your refrigerator for a week. He says, and who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Now, how many of us are in a royal position? Raise your hand. You're wrong. You all are in royal position. All of you are strategically placed uniquely to have opportunities that nobody else has. My son-in-law, I was telling you, coaching his son in the Pontiac Baseball League, the PAL League. He's in a royal position. He's coaching 14 squirrely 7, 8, and 9-year-olds and loving their families. And they're amazing people. I love it. It's just incredible. It's like, so this is my question. Where is your royal position? So let's ask you the question again. How many of you have been put in a royal position? Come on. You didn't even want it. Some of you are like, I'm still not going to raise my hand. I don't care. Andrews can manipulate me as much as he wants. Guilt me, shame me. I'm not going to raise my hand. The truth of it is, all of us are uniquely placed. You're placed into family. You're placed into school. You bump into people that no one else sees. You have this incredible position. It could be caring for your grandchildren. It could be driving a school bus. In fact, this is really a fun story. My mom, which 20 years ago, right after we got into this building, met a guy that part of the Troy campus that drives a school bus. And he had been feeling totally defeated. Like, man, I'm just a school bus driver. It's crazy. My mom, over visits, over a period of years, poured into this guy and just helped him see what a position that was. Like, who else would God put on that bus with those kids? Like, God places you. Like, if I could beg you, if I could grab you by the shoulders and say, God has uniquely placed you. I don't know where it is, but it's just as important. It might not be for clean water and for every Pocot to know Jesus Christ. That's my calling, and some of you have made it your calling. But it might be as simple as laying your life down for children or serving or and what I know is it's going to be unique to you. So, who knows? But that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Maybe God's put you. So let me talk to businessmen and women that have built companies. You built a company. Some of you have really had a success. Your financial future is secure. Why has God put you in that situation? Just to coast? You know what my biggest temptation is in my life? I'm turning 67 next week, and I'm expecting hundreds of cards and presents. Just kidding. The only person that ever sends me a birthday card is Debbie Popchuk, my admin. My dad's old nurse from childhood always sent me a birthday card. That's it. So, and I'm too old to celebrate birthdays anyway, but as you think about your life, think of what's your greatest challenge. You know what my greatest challenge is? To take the easy road. I've worked my butt off for a long time. It'd be so easy to go, man. Now it's my time. It's my time now, baby. But you know what happens when you make your time? God's time gets lost somewhere in the journey. Like, what if God brought me to this moment for something that I haven't even seen yet? You see, that's why it's no different being 13 or 67 or 25. It's like today, when you drive out of here, when you go to work tomorrow, when you step into your school, you have an opportunity before you. Will you seize it for God? Or will you just let life pass you by? Will you live in the netherworld and just live in the limbo of nothingness because you will not listen or respond to the love that God has said, I made you for a purpose? This is what's facing Esther. So Esther does one last thing. It was really cool. She goes, Mordecai, go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. And do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. Have you ever tried to go without fluid for 3 days? I mean, you get at the end of 72 hours, you're starting to flirt with your organs shutting down. And she says, and I and my attendants will fast as you do. And when this is done, I love this. I'll go to the king. And if I perish, I perish. Wouldn't you love to finish your life knowing that your life had that level of courage? Like, I'm going to do it, and if I fall flat on my face, if I fail in every aspect, I still did it. I still went for it. It's not the success. The measure of success to me is not the result. It's the attempt. You can't control how your kids are going to ultimately turn out. You don't know how the business you started is going to pan out. Listen, I could tell you 100, 200 men and women that started churches that are way more, love Jesus way more than I did and struggled like crazy. That wasn't the point. The point was, will you seize the moment that God's inviting you to step into? And if I could, I would love to talk to every one of you today and grab you by the shoulder and say, brother, sister, what do you think it is for you? Like, what is that today staring you in the face? That's why I love being a part of this community, because I look out and I see people I know that are stepping into the challenges that God has given them. So, here's what I want you to know. What matters most about this story, I'm not going to even tell you what happens. Esther gets executed. Just kidding. Just a joke, sorry. No, she makes it. It's great. But you got to read it. Anybody promise to read Esther this week? I know most of you have never read it. Would you read it? Come on, in the back. Would some of you guys read it? Like, dude, don't make me come back there after you. Do you want to face this? Seriously. Read it, because it's an incredible story of how God provides. God uses Esther to save her nation of millions of people. What a legacy. What an incredible legacy. But she could have made excuses. And here's what I love. This is Craig McGlasson. Craig writes about feeling like an underdog his whole life, by the way. It's really great as he was leading us in this message. He says, what matters is that two people who at best have a lukewarm walk with God, two people who had the odds stacked against them, decide to get serious about their faith and to stand and face the odds against them. And I'd love for you to take, any of you take a picture of the screen so you have this, no matter the outcome. This is what I wish people would understand. The outcome is great if it comes. But you know what's more important? More important to be serious, to stand and face the odds and to trust God and to give it your full effort and your full attention and to live into the grace of God and say, God, whatever you call me to do, I'm going to do it, whether I live or whether I die. And now I want to show the picture. So 2 Sundays ago, I'm in Ramallah, in the West Bank, in Israel, in the area of Palestine, and the only evangelical church in the area, in the region around Ramallah. And Andrew Kim spoke, and I wish y'all could have been there. Andrew was electric. It was incredible. And he and this translator, they had this, I mean, they were Mutt and Jeff, man. I mean, they were seamless. They were ham and eggs. It was such a great message. And there's just this little tiny church. And the Christians in that region are way less than 1%. The people love Jesus Christ. And most of the people in that area would number one, either love for them to leave or be dead. And I want to show you Michael Kakish and his father lead this church. Michael and Jackie are very close friends for Paula and me. And they're girls, they're two girls. I love it. Their oldest daughter's like towering above Jackie now. It's pretty fun. But they are electric people. And for the last 10 years, they've been serving in Ramallah. They live in a one-bedroom apartment, the four of them. They work in the most difficult of circumstances. Michael's Jordanian, Jackie's from Egypt. Jackie's parents live here in the Troy area. And they've been serving Christ. Michael is building a bridge between the Messianic Jewish believers in Israel and Palestinian Christians in the West Bank, and they're getting together. Even though they see the problem differently, they come together for fellowship in Christ. This couple are heroes. You know what's interesting? They own a home 2 miles from here in Troy. Beautiful home. 4 bedrooms, beautiful backyard, front yard. They rent it out. He's owned it. He was on our staff 10 years ago, but God called him back. But instead of living here in Troy in this beautiful 4-bedroom home that he rents out, he lives in about a 600 square foot apartment with his wife and his 2 daughters to serve Jesus Christ in Ramallah. And here's what I want to say. He is seizing the opportunity that God had for him. God's not calling you to Ramallah, probably. He's called you here. Maybe he's called you elsewhere. But to say, no matter the outcome, I'm going to stand and face the odds against me and choose to see the opportunity that God is presenting to me. Now, a lot of you don't know the Bible really well. There's one last context for this. Mordecai knows that his ancestors, for hundreds of years, have rejected God. The reason they're in exile is because they walked away from God. And so he said, God, nobody else ever stood up to follow you and trust you. Why I should just let it all go? He could have made excuses. Esther could have said, I'm just a young girl. I'm an orphan. I never even knew my mother and father. And I'm married to the king, but I have no real authority. I'm just a pretty face. I don't make any decisions. All decisions are made for me. I've lied about my Jewish heritage. I've never practiced my faith. And this is all out of my control. Anybody ever made excuses like that in this room? Of course you have. I have. But Mordecai says, Esther, who knows? Maybe this is your moment. Perhaps God has placed us where we are. Well, if you take a picture of this on the screen, perhaps God has placed us where we are for just such a time as this. Do we have that, Janelle? No, is there a next one? I thought I gave you another one right after that. Maybe not. Okay. I told you I'd yell at you one time. Did you make it? Craig McGlasson shared golly, it's been 16, 17 years ago, they started Paradox Church. And I remember him telling me, man, I can't be the right person to launch this church. I don't have the training. I don't have the background, you know. I didn't expect to even be approved, and here I am. And I remember all those years ago going, Craig, that's exactly how I felt. Ask her. Remember, I'd come whining to you every day like it's got to be somebody better than me. But God, through Mordecai, says to Esther, listen, I'm in control. And yes, you've made bad decisions. Maybe other people are controlling your life, but this is your moment. So here's what I want you to think about. How do you answer the call? How do you answer the call to your moment? How do you measure what that success would look like? 4 things, just real quick, and then I want you to take a picture of this. Look for your such a time as this moment, or moments. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they may be small. Look less for big moments and more for the moments where you could have big impact. Do for one, maybe what do you wish you could do for all? It's a cool motto that a lot of our team has. It's not always the great thing, but it could just be a simple decision. Listen, to have that moment, such a time as this moment. Secondly, I would say listen to your Mordecai. In other words, you have someone in your life who's challenging you to encourage you to think about what you could do with your life, like what you could step into. Listen to that person. God tends to put people in our lives that can see what God has made us to do better than we see ourselves. And I'm so thankful that we have those people in our life. Number 3, acknowledge what you can't ignore. This is what we call the peskiness of God. This is where God keeps tapping you on the shoulder and saying, hey, what about this? What about these people? What about this time? It's funny. Just took 19 guys to Israel. That's where I got my cold and lost my voice. And it's been a wonderful week for my wife, me not being able to talk. Every guy on that trip, grappling with their such a time as this moment. A lot of the guys feel like they were wasting their time with their kids or could have done better. Or like, what is God trying to change into my life? What is God trying to speak into my life? It's incredible to be for 11 days with 19 men that are all trying to say yes to the critical moments that God is inviting them to live in their life. Right, Jeremiah? We just did it. God speaks, and all of a sudden, you start to listen to the things you've been ignoring for so long. And the last one is this. Choose, this is going to sound odd, but I hope you take a picture of the 4 of these. But the last one is this. Choose the most difficult path and the most joyful path. Does that sound odd? Just nod if you think it sounds odd. Choose the most difficult path and the most joyful path. I have come to believe in my life that they're one and the same. I think whatever God calls you to do, he's going to flood you with joy to do it. When you see someone doing what God has called them to do, no matter how challenging, it might be the most difficult, but it's the most joyful. That's what Mordecai and Esther did along the way. But you know who else did it? Jesus did it. My last scripture today is Hebrews 12, 1 and 2. It says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up. And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. I want us to go back to Esther. For Esther to walk in before the king, what did she have to strip away from her life? All her security, all her hopes and dreams, all her plans, expectation for her family, children, whatever. She had to lay it all aside to risk what God was telling her to do. And I thought, some of you today, are you carrying so much weight of past mistakes and shame? Or you're carrying the weight of addictions? You're carrying the weight of feeling like that your main purpose in life is just to be happy rather than to live a life of purpose. I don't know what the weight is that you're carrying, but it's slowing you down. Strip it off and run with endurance what God has planned for you to do. And then, best of all, look at the joy. I'm going to talk about the difficulty in the joy. Verse 2, it says, we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. And now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Do you know what God's joy, you know what Jesus' joy was? Some of you know this because I've talked about this in the past. You know what the joy that was set before him? He endured the shame. He did the most difficult path, but it was the most joyful path. And the joy he saw ahead, you know what it was? It was you. That was the joy. You always felt like you're a second-class person. You don't have value. Your life doesn't matter. You're an underdog. The things are set against you. When Jesus went to the cross, he saw you and dreamed of you in relationship and being connected back to the Father. How exciting is that? How beautiful is that? So use that path. As we finish this today, I just want to say, when God calls you to seize the opportunity, I just hope as a community we talk about it, that part of our regular daily conversation will be, so what's God calling you to? What's God calling you to? What do you think God's calling you to, bro? What is God calling you to? Like, it's just like, how's God moving in you for your life to be more than you thought it could be, to live the purpose God created you for? My last thought is this, because when he calls you, he goes with you. Wherever we're called, Jesus goes with us and ahead of us. That's why I don't know how many days I have left, but I want to live them answering that call. I want to seize the opportunity that God gave to me. The opportunity he gave to me, he didn't give to you. He gave you an opportunity he didn't give to me. Seize it, okay? Someone say, okay. Seize it. And say, God, you made me for a reason and a purpose. Don't let me miss it. Let me live into it. That would be my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
So with our remaining minutes that we have together, we're going to just sing a song that invites us to find our hope and our help and our strength in Jesus. I want to answer the call that Steve was talking about today for such a time as this, but we need to do it in the strength of Jesus. He's the only one that can help us.
What gift of grace is Jesus my Redeemer? There is no more for heaven now to give. He is my joy, my righteousness and freedom, my steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. For my life is wholly bound to his. Oh, how strange and divine, I can sing all is mine, yet not I, but through Christ in me.
Or if you're able to, let's stand together and sing this song together. I love this verse. It says,
the night is dark, but I am not forsaken. For by my side, the Savior, he will stay. I labor on in weakness and rejoicing, for in my need, his power is displayed. To this I hold, my shepherd will defend me. Through the deepest valley he will lead. Oh, the night has been won, and I shall overcome, yet not I, but through Christ in me. Oh, Christ in us.
fate I dread. I know I am forgiven. The future sure, the price it has been paid. For Jesus bled and suffered for my pardon, and he was raised to overthrow the grave. To this I hold, my sin has been defeated. Jesus now and ever is my plea. All the chains are released, I can sing, I am free, yet not I, but through Christ in me.
When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this?"
God saved you by his grace when you believed, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ Jesus, so we can do the things he planned for us long ago.
With every breath, I long to follow Jesus, for he has said that he will bring me home. And day by day, I know he will renew me until I stand with joy before the throne. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. Oh, the glory evermore to him. When the race is complete, still my lips shall repeat, yet not I, but through Christ in me. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus. Oh, the glory evermore to him. When the race is complete, still my lips shall repeat, yet not I, but through Christ in me. When the race is complete, still my lips shall repeat, yet not I, but through Christ in me. Yet not I, but through Christ in me. Yet not I, but through Christ in me. And we go on this journey of just surrendering to God's will and plan. There's no telling what can happen. Cause we've seen what you can do, oh God of wonders. Your power has no weight. And the things you've done before, in greater measure, God, you will do again. Cause there's no prison wall you can't break through, no mountain you can't move. All things are possible. Hey, there's no broken body you can't raise, no soul that you can't save. Oh, things are possible. The can light it up. You can light it up. God of revival. Let hope arise. Death is overcome. You've already won. God of revival. You rose in victory. Now you're seated forever on the throne. Yeah. So why should my heart fear what you defeated? I will trust in you alone. 'Cause there's no reason why you can't break through. No mountain you can't move. And there's no broken body you can't raise, no soul that you can't save. All things are possible. The darkest night, you can light it up. You can light it up. God of revival. Let hope arise. Death is overcome. You've already won. A God of revival. A God of revival. Oh Lord, we believe in what you can do. So this is our prayer. Come awaken your people. Come awaken this city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, yeah. Every stronghold will crumble. Hear the chains hit the ground, Jesus. The God of revival, pour it out. Pour it out. Come awaken your people. Come awaken this city. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. Every stronghold will crumble. Hear the chains hit the ground. Oh God of revival, pour it out, pour it out. The darkest night, you can light it up. You can light it up. Oh God of revival, let hope arise. Death is overcome. Oh, you've already won. God of revival, oh God of revival.
thank the band and the vocalist, the worship team. It's been a really special morning. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for that. Just kind of leading us. And I just want to say to everyone, when you feel like an underdog, maybe that's the moment where God really starts to speak into your life, to take the risk, whatever that is, and to speak that out and to move into whatever that could be, and to know that when you do that, the attempt is worth all. Maybe God will give you great success in the journey too, but the attempt to say, I want to step in and meet needs and respond and see what Christ could do. And I just want to say this, if you could hear Jesus speaking with an audible voice, he would say to you, I've made you beautifully. I've just made you wonderfully. Made you wonderfully. Made you I've made you, and and let him move in such a special way in your life. Thanks for sharing it. We'll be back next week for Vines and Grapes. Make sure you get your running shoes for Hope Water, okay? See you.